The boy screamed when a beam fell near them, but Stan didn't slow. His breath was calm. He pulled the boy over his shoulder and charged through the thick air, lungs burning. Stan sat on the edge of his bed, eyes fixed on the worn stone wall. The air in his room was still, heavy with the dust of old years and old hopes, but his mind raced. It wasn't strength that saved them, it was stamina. That night hadn't been big, but he had lasted. His movements never slowed. His strikes stayed sharp even when the bear grew sluggish. Stan opened and closed his trembling hand. He couldn't build power like the others. His body wouldn't allow it. But endurance, that had been the only training he'd ever shown any progress in. The long-distance runs, the breathing drills. He never won, but he didn't collapse either. Not like he did during sword training. Not like when he tried to lift weights. Maybe stamina was the path forward. He rose with sudden energy and left his room, his boots whispering down the stone corridors of Halden Manor. The library sat in the west wing, mostly untouched. The family had little interest in scholarship, save for military strategy and ancestral records. As he passed the high-arched hallway, he caught a figure moving ahead, tall, broad-shouldered, walking with measured ease. It was his brother, Garrett Halden, firstborn, top graduate of Athelion's Martial Academy, now an elite knight in the Royal Vanguard, draped in polished reputation and command. Stan and Garrett shared the same name, the same bloodline, but nothing else. Garrett barely glanced as they neared each other. "Brother," he said with a stiff nod. Stan mirrored it. Brother. No warmth, no animosity, just cold acknowledgement. They passed, and that was that. Stan entered the library. The tall shelves loomed with age, thick with tomes on war, beasts, codes of honor. He traced his fingers across the spines until he found a thin section, vital conditioning and endurance. He pulled a few books, The Tireless Form, Mastering Your Breath, Heart of the Mountain, and flipped through them one by one. Charts, medical diagrams, philosophical musings, nothing useful. He sighed and closed the last book, defeated. The door creaked behind him. Garrett stepped in, glancing around as if scanning a battlefield. He spotted Stan and paused. "I left something," he said, then frowned. "What are you looking for?" Stan hesitated, then replied, "Stamina." Garrett studied him with a strange expression, almost surprise. He didn't speak, just nodded once, then turned and walked out. Stan assumed that was the end of it. But moments later, Garrett returned. In his hand was a small, black-covered book, edges worn with use. Without a word, he handed it over. Stan blinked. "What's this?" "Be careful," Garrett said. Stan nodded, confused, and cradled the book as if it were precious. He thought Garrett meant to handle it gently. He didn't yet understand. Alone, back in his room, Stan opened the book. No title, no author. Inside were simple instructions, some drawn diagrams. It focused on a single principle: control the breath, master the body. One passage stood out. Breathe in with clarity, breathe out with force, slow, steady, unbroken. A river of air, 20 seconds, no less. Stan sat up straight and inhaled deeply, then exhaled. All his air fled in 5 seconds. His lungs collapsed like a broken bellows. He coughed. He tried again and again. Each attempt ended in gasps. He couldn't stretch it, couldn't control it. His frustration rose like fire in his chest. That afternoon, needing a distraction, he went to the forge. Some of his old training tools had rusted, and the blacksmith agreed to repair them. The workshop was hot and alive, filled with clangs and hissing steel. In the corner, a great leather bellows pumped air into the furnace. It wheezed open, then expelled a long, forceful stream of breath into the flames. The fire danced higher, brighter. Stan watched, mesmerized. The bellows didn't just push, it controlled its release. The nozzle was small. The shape was tight. That was what let the air flow for so long. Stan stood there, breath catching in his throat. He left the workshop at once. Back in his room, he sat on the floor, lips pursed to a small circle. He inhaled, then exhaled. This time the air came out slowly, smoothly. He controlled it with his lips, like the mouth of the bellows. The air lasted. 10 seconds, 14, 17. His lungs trembled, but he pushed to 20. He laughed, just a breath of laughter, but it was real. Garrett hadn't meant be careful with the book. He meant be careful what it asks of you, because this wasn't easy. but it was possible. From that night on, Stan followed the book like scripture. Each morning began with breathing drills. He'd walk in laps while controlling his inhale and exhale, counting silently, focusing on the rhythm. He added exercises to raise his heart rate, stairs, slow sprints, weighted climbs, all while maintaining the 20-second breath. Week after week, no audience, no praise, just discipline. A month passed, then another half. He didn't feel stronger, but he felt different. The moment came without warning. It was evening, and the servants' barn had caught fire, a runaway ember from a cooking hearth. The flames had started low, but within minutes, smoke rose thick above the treetops. Panic scattered the workers. Someone shouted that a young stable boy was still trapped inside, too scared to run. Stan was closest to the barn. Without thinking, he ran toward the smoke. Inside, the heat was suffocating. Flames licked along the wooden beams. He found the boy huddled under a table, coughing and crying. Stan grabbed his arm. "We're getting out." The boy screamed when a beam fell near them, but Stan didn't slow. His breath was calm. He pulled the boy over his shoulder and charged through the thick air, lungs burning. Outside, the crowd gasped as Stan emerged with the boy in his arms. He laid him down, then dropped to his knees. He wasn't wheezing. His chest rose and fell, steady and sure. A servant stared. "You're not even out of breath?" Stan blinked. For a second, even he hadn't realized it. It wasn't power that saved the boy. It was endurance. It was breath. It was him. At 14, he had reclaimed the stamina he'd lost at 10, and this time, he had earned it.